So last thing we're going to get into is the Quiet on Set review. This will be the longer segment for sure. And I'm going to be referencing my notes a lot because I had to kind of jot stuff down that I didn't think I could remember. So I'm going to go let my dog back in real quick, and then we'll get to this.
In the early 90s, Nickelodeon was kid everything. And you better hope that your house had cable.
Wasn't there to educate you. We were there to have fun, to get slimed, to be entertained.
And this is when Dan Schneider arrives, Nickelodeon's golden boy. He created these shows that were hugely successful for them.
No one had ever really done sketch comedy starring kids for kids.
He launched the careers of child actors who became major stars.
For 20 years, he shaped children's entertainment and culture.
Hey, thank you for being here.
But that marked one of the darkest chapters.
All right. Just let my dog back in. If I tell you what, if I can find a good picture of him, I'll pop it up real quick here and let y'all take a look at that. Aww. If I can't find one, then there won't be anything here, and I'm just looking awkwardly at the camera. But he my big boy, a little pit bull. So something cute and fuzzy and lovey-dovey to look at real quick before we go into this last segment, because this is a deeper segment, it's a darker segment, and honestly, guys, you know, doing the podcast, vidcast, whatever you want to call it, it comes with its own pros and cons. I enjoy doing what I do, talking to you guys, and talking to a buddy of mine, Dustin, last go around with rolling this out. When I do cover these deeper, darker topics, it does take a little bit of a toll on me emotionally. It is very heartbreaking to cover some of this stuff and to see how dark and twisted our world is. So, one, I did watch the entire documentary up to this point, while that second, of Quiet on Set. It wasn't the greatest documentary I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't the hardest thing I've ever had to watch, but it wasn't an easy watch either. It was very gut-wrenching, and especially as a father, it pissed me off quite a bit. I've been thinking about how to kind of recap this, you know, or review it or whatever with you guys. And, you know, was I going to do a full in-depth review, kind of like my 2+ hour State of the Union address review? No, I'm not doing that. Or just touch a few points. And I will do that for the most part. I'm just going to touch the key points of it, which there are several. And I'll give my thoughts on it, but I don't want to go too in depth because I do want to encourage people to watch it if you think you can stand it, if you think you can watch it. And here's why. One, I think awareness and education are huge. I think this is big for even the folks that, like, we've always known something's going on in Hollywood and they're all about our kids and this and that. A lot of people already know that. I get it. I've always kind of understood that that's the case, right? Myself. But watching this can only, yes, it brings to the forefront of our minds and gets us more, you know, activated in our thoughts of dealing with stuff like this and how we look at things in the world. But it also is more views for the documentary, and that's more support for the documentary, and that's showing more of an interest in stuff like that. My hopes are the more people that watch it, the more interest that's in there, the more people are talking about on social media, like what I'm doing now, and you guys watching, of course, and hopefully subscribing. And if this is any good, you know, and you feel like you want to, definitely share it with other folks and encourage them to watch it as well, because I'm hoping that, again, if we show support for it, if we're talking about it, if we show an interest in it, they'll do more of it. And I don't mean that by me being like a sick, twisted guy, like I can't get enough of this stuff, but it's a great incentive to expose more. And I think that's going to be healthy. as much as it sucks to hear it and relive it for probably, you know, these people that have gone through it, the more it gets out there and the more we're aware of it, the better overall I think things are. I think the more, again, the more conscious we as a society can be. And a more conscious, more aware, more active society is always a good thing. It's when we are asleep and we are sheep and we are mindless that we end up getting screwed over all the time in the upper echelons, the government, the bourgeoisie, the whoever, you know, these guys get to run amok on us. So again, I'll be referencing my notes quite a bit here, going back and forth with some other things. Let's see. Yeah, and I don't think I have this in order, so I do apologize ahead of time. It's quite a bit, but again, I did try to kind of narrow it down. So let's go ahead and let's get into some of this. So oh, and before I do, this is not a kids show, not the documentary. The documentary definitely is, but the Morning Mayhem is not a kids friendly show. I try to be very family friendly for the most part. You'll hear things slip from here and, you know, here, there, and some clips may have some things in there, but the subject matter a lot of times of what I talk about or what gets presented is really not kid friendly. It's important that you're aware of it and that it's brought to your attention to do with it whatever you want, but it's not necessarily kid friendly. So that's your warning for this, because I'm not going to be graphic by any means, but I am going to dive into a little bit of subject matter that is not suitable for children. So that's your warning. Get them out of the room. Here we go. So the documentary itself presented itself as a hit piece against Nickelodeon, specifically this man right here, Dan Schneider, which is all I heard about, and all the previews for it, people talking about it and everything like that. It was basically a hit piece against Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider. I'm trying to do the images in a new way, so bear with me as I kind of roll through this, because I want you to see me while I'm talking about it. While it did portray him as an ass to work with, potentially a racist, sexist, and bit of a creeper, they really didn't go as far as I thought they would have for him. A lot of the more heinous acts discussed were centered around these three guys, which I'll go into a little bit of them here in a minute, but these three guys got a lot more of the dark side exposed of them than Dan Schneider did, in my opinion. And a lot of the stuff that was exposed of Dan Schneider, I want to be careful here. There were things that were said like, there was a superhero character that a little boy played called Nose Boy or something like that, and he had this big nose, and there were noses on his shoulders, and the noses looked like a penis and balls, and then, but to me it looked like a nose. I don't know how innocent that was. I don't know if there were any ill intentions behind that, mischievousness to be sneaky and hide something in there. We know they do, Disney and everybody, right? And speaking of Disney, we'll talk about them too, probably. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff that was mentioned may have come from the people commenting on it, looking at it from the new perspective of let's break everything down and tear it apart and find anything that could be a sign of wrongdoing or adults pushing agendas on children and stuff like that, which, don't get me wrong, I'm okay with that, but sometimes I felt like when they were looking at things, they were making mountains out of molehills. I'm not defending Dan or anybody else. I'm just saying some of it seemed like it was a little bit of a stretch. So if you do watch it, take that for what it's worth. You may hear some things and go like, I don't know about that. And that's fine. I mean, everybody's got a different perspective to look at things, and I'm not judging them, but there were a couple of things that kind of caught me, and you know, I don't know if they were that big of a deal or not, but these guys right here were a big deal. Definitely a big deal here. Let's see. Of these men, most of the time was spent on the one in the middle right here, Brian Peck, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, this woman right here is one of the mothers of one of the girls that worked for Dan Schneider. It's one of the actresses on the show. She worked alongside Jason Handy right here. A lot of them did. Jason Handy was, look at him, smiling, good looking guy. He was friendly with everybody. And all the little video clips I saw, I thought he was gay. But apparently he wasn't, because he sent this woman's little girl email correspondence all the time. So when they weren't filming, he would correspond with her through email. This was the early days of email and internet and all that fun, good stuff, right? Probably with the dial-up tones that you guys remember and everything. But, or some of you remember, might be dating myself on that one. But he ended up eventually sending her, or her daughter, I forget her name, and I'm trying to leave some of the names out, because they've been through enough. I'll mention one specifically in a minute, of course, because he was the focused one. But eventually that Jason Handy guy emailed her daughter an image of him pleasing himself and saying that he was thinking of her, a child who I think at the time was like 11 or something. I have an 11-year-old, so a lot of this was hitting pretty close to home when I was thinking about things. Now, this woman did not get any bonus points from me, didn't get a lot of respect from me on anything, because when this happened, she debated on whether she was going to go to the cops or not. She decided not to. I'm not thrilled with this woman. I'm not thrilled with that decision. In fact, it took more children to be harassed and possibly assaulted before anything ever happened to Jason Handy. And they did eventually arrest him, and he was charged. And they did contact her and asked about the photos and everything like that. And I just imagine in situations like that, if she or someone else would have spoken up as soon as it happened, how many more children could have been spared? So, I don't know this woman personally, so I'm not going to dig on her too much, but not the best move there, in my opinion. I know a lot of people on the web have been displeased with her as well, along with another woman we're going to talk about in a minute. But this guy right here, this is a boss. This dude had my utmost respect. This is Drake Bell's father, Drake Bell, who was the main focus for a good portion of it, to talk about what happened to him. We'll get into that more in a minute, but I'm going to name drop him because he did come on the show and he did talk about his experiences. So this is Drake's father. After he and his wife got divorced, he made it a point to support Drake in whatever he wanted in order to build a closeness with him and support his dreams. Drake wanted to act and play music. But with the acting, his dad was his biggest supporter, took him to auditions, stayed on set with him, managed him, everything. Eventually, weirdo Brian Peck, right here in the middle. We're going to start talking about this guy, Brian Peck. I'm not going to hit on him that much. He's a pedo. He's a pedo. He's pefo and worse. But not gonna harp on that last guy too much. But Brian Peck. All right, so we're going to talk about him some. So eventually, Brian Peck started coming around more and more, and would like touch Drake in a way that his dad noticed, and it's like, that seems a little inappropriate. That seems wrong to me. So let's quit doing that. And so he said some stuff to Brian, I think. I know he went and he talked to the studio, and when he called the attention to the studio, they told him that Brian was gay. And so, he's gay, and you sound like maybe you're a little homophobic, which I don't know back then, but definitely right now, that is a threat. Like, if you're homophobic, we're going to cancel you. We're going to ruin Drake's career. We're going to do everything. So he kind of backed off, didn't say anything to the studio, but he still was trying to prevent this Brian dude from getting too close to Drake. So hats off to him. This guy right here was a real hero. He had my respect big time. But eventually, as they all do, not all, I shouldn't say that, as the worst of the worst do, I guess, as they try to do, they try to separate the children from their parents. And so Brian Peck did separate Drake from his father. He created a wedge between there, eventually had Drake wanting to move back in and move his custody or whatever over to his mother, instead of his father. Now, of course, that broke his father down. This man, I saw pictures of him when he was younger. I mean, this is a man. This is a man. It's not one of those modern day soy boy infused whatever. This dude looks like a man. Like, he'd shake your hand, be a man of his word. He'd fix your car, drink a beer with you, cuss like a sailor, and then turn around and go to church on Sunday, whatever. But like, it's man, and I'll speak to that more in a little bit there at the end of this. But it was sad to see this guy tell this story, because he was genuinely heartbroken, of course, when he lost custody to his ex-wife. And he told her, he said, look, here's the papers, here's the money, here's everything, whatever Drake wants, I support. But there's one stipulation: keep this pedo that I hasn't been confirmed as a pedo yet, but I've got a bad feeling about this guy. Keep him away from my baby boy. Keep him away from Drake. That's all he said. That's my stipulation with all of this. Otherwise, you can have everything you want. What did mommy do? Mom allowed Drake to go to auditions riding in the car with this guy, because they were like a different county over or something. I love when big city folks like in California or New York talk about, oh, I'm in Orange County and it's over in LA and I'm on the, the I-10, or I don't know where any of these places are. I know a lot of people do, because these are famous places and stuff like that, but it's not that big to me. I don't know. I'm not that interested in the makeup of California and stuff. So I don't know how far away these locations were. They kind of painted a picture, but apparently a lot of the auditions and stuff were further away from where the mother lived, and the mother didn't want to drive all that way to take them. And some of the auditions would be later and whatnot. So not only was Brian Peck driving Drake to the auditions and back, but because there were sometimes back-to-back auditions, or there were shoots or stuff, Drake would spend the night at this dude's house. The same dude that the dad said keep him away from, and the ex-wife's like, drive him to auditions, let him stay at your house, I don't care. So a lot of people are pretty, as you can imagine, pissed at the mom for putting Drake in this very awkward situation that turns out to be very devastating, actually. So for those that don't know, the bombshell story exposed was from Drake. Where's he at? Boom. Was from Drake Bell himself. He discussed the violent sexual things Brian did to him, which were at his house while he was spending the night. Not to mention all the other weird stuff, like going to all his performances for his band and calling him nonstop and stuff, which is what eventually led to everything kind of come to light. But he discussed the violent sexual things Brian did to him and how he felt he couldn't speak up. It took his girlfriend's mom to notice something wasn't right before anyone said anything. Basically, this dude was blowing up his cell phone. 40-plus-year-old guy was blowing up his cell phone nonstop. Like, where are you? Why aren't you hanging out with me? What's going on? And this was all while he was at the girlfriend's family's house. And the girlfriend's mom pulled him aside and said, what is going on? This isn't normal. And even then, Drake was like, oh, he's a friend, that da-da-da. He felt trapped. He didn't know what to do. And my heart breaks. My heart breaks for him. But kudos to the girlfriend's mom. She knows that she called him out. I don't know if he's still with that girlfriend or not, but I would imagine he still keeps in contact with the girlfriend's mom, because she saved his life, basically. I won't get into the sexual acts this man performed on Drake, but it will break your heart. So if you watch it, be prepared for that. It'll break your heart. And he doesn't go into the fullness of it. The line he says in there, I'll let you watch it and hear what he says. It paints enough of a picture for you. And to know he felt like he couldn't tell anyone, which then put him in the same situation over and over again and allowed this behavior to continue. God, I'm getting worked up again just thinking about it, honestly. I got pretty worked up. There are 4 episodes right now. We'll get into that in a second too, but there are 4 episodes. I thought there were just 2. We watched 2, and then we went into the 3rd one, my wife and I was getting tired and I was getting irritated, and we finished the third, and I was like, I'm going to bed. We had to wait till the next day till we both cooled off before we could watch that final episode, the episode 4. And yeah, so again, I got worked up watching. I got worked up putting all this together. I'm getting a little worked up now, so I apologize. But I am a filmmaker. This is something I want to do. And again, I am a father of an 11-year-old, and I have had my child on set with me in our small little atmosphere for a small period of time, right in my line of sight, as she will always be if she is ever on my set. I don't trust anybody. And it's so great that I am surrounded by people that have the same mindset. We probably won't call the cops if we ever find somebody doing something inappropriate. We'll just handle it ourselves. We're Georgia boys, and I don't mean like redneck Southern, white Georgia boy. No, most of the people I work with are, country black folks, and we all, black, white, younger, older, Southern, Christian, atheist, whatever, we all have pretty much the same creed when it comes to that. You don't mess with kids. So, there's diversity there, but not diversity in mindset. We all believe the same thing. You don't mess with kids. So I'm super grateful of that. But again, it's easy to get worked up over this stuff. So, got a little bit more and we'll finish up. But yeah, bam. But good for the girlfriend's mom for noticing and stepping up. After Brian Peck was locked up and everything, Drake finally told his dad they got him. He told me, he said, hey, did you hear they got him? And his dad was so happy to hear that and glad they got him before he did anything to Drake. He didn't know, because in all the court documentations, all the allegations, because Drake was a minor, it was just John Doe. His name wasn't listed. Eventually, Drake did tell his dad that it was him that he got, and that was the reason he got busted. And I saw this man, and I'm going to try not to now, but I saw this man break down, again, telling that story, and it broke me down, and it's starting to do it right now. But, again, I have a hard time seeing a grown-ass man, get emotional. And I think about my child. I think about all these other children. But he did everything he could to protect his child while still supporting him. And, he told the ex-wife, don't let him around. And yeah. Sorry. So yeah, this monster right here destroyed his son, his baby boy. As a father, again, that's a completely terrifying notion that could happen to your child. For those of you who have kids, you know that no matter how old they get, they're always your babies. They're always our babies. And I feel that way not just about mine, but my nieces, my nephews, my friends' kids. Again, John's. He's got a son that's just killing it. Nephew, my nephew over there, so to speak. I love kids, not like they did, but I love kids, and I will do anything to protect them and their innocence. It's something else. So so my wife and I, we were so focused on this story, we almost completely forgot about Dan Schneider. Because as dark and deep as those stories went with Handy over there and Pickle Guy, they didn't go that deep with Dan here. And I was like, wait a second, I forgot all about Dan watching this. It kind of blew my mind. Even Drake said that when he was going through everything, Dan was the one that was there for him. So that was really weird to hear as well. But the man that this special was supposed to be all about, we thought we would hear so much more of. There was mention of him and his closeness to a lot of the girls, his obsession with feet, some of the awkward videos he did digital shorts of that are out there online, and of course they're included in the documentary. They did mention how he instantly connected with Amanda Bynes. I don't know what rumors are and aren't true, but there's been a lot of social media posts and writings and memoirs about a producer on the show that was constantly out of line and inappropriate. Most people associate that with Dan Schneider. Not only that, but an account that was said to belong to Amanda Bynes mentioned getting pregnant at 13 from her boss and being forced to have an abortion. Again, that was not brought up in the documentary. That is just what other people are throwing out there because that's like a known thing and a sickening thing if that is the case. This is the Amanda Bynes I remember. This is Amanda Bynes on her way to the top. She was, I mean, when I saw her as a kid on All That and the Amanda Show, she was killing it. And they talked about that in the documentary, how she was like a natural. Apparently she was kind of groomed to be that way from her parents, and a lot was put on her. And it sounds like she was just screwed from the start. No pun intended with that by any means. Wasn't trying to be ugly, but she just had a bad go from the start with her mom and dad, and she was really forced into this. But she was a natural. I mean, she was hilarious for a child, and a lot of people noticed that. A lot of people saw her rise, and Dan Schneider was really close to her. They talked about that in the documentary, but that's about as far as they went. A lot of kids have a hard time. The Lindsay Lohans and Amanda Bynes and so many others have a hard time coming up in the business as child actors. And now I'm not placing judgment here, but this is a side by side of Amanda. And she went from rising Hollywood starlet, comedic actress. I mean, again, she had it all. I mean, she was a beautiful girl, very, very talented. Again, rising star. And I'm not knocking this girl for her appearance or anything like that. I'm definitely not one to do that. Other people have, and I'm not doing anything about her attractiveness here, but I will talk about the lifelessness that we see here, and just when you go from what is kind of extremes here and the happy, the done up hair and stuff, and here she's got on wigs, or I've heard her say extensions, and she's got the face tattoo and everything, and now she's a nail salon person. She's doing nails. I'm sorry, I'm not in that. I don't do that. I don't know what it's called. A nail esthetician or something. But she's doing her thing, and I'm happy for her if she's happy and everything. But it's just so weird to see, and you guys have probably seen her in that process of kind of losing, kind of like Britney Spears did, losing it and kind of going off the deep end. But a lot of that is being attributed to this guy right here. And again, the documentary did not dive into that much, and I wish it would have, and I would love to see more on that, because I really think that people need to be held accountable for what they've done. I think those stories need to be exposed as well. Right here, I'm not going to read anything from this, but I do want to point this out, and I've got the link to it in the show notes below. But this is on Yahoo. It's called Quiet on Set: What Josh Peck, Drake Bell, and other Nickelodeon child stars were saying after watching the doc. And if you go through it, there are screenshots of tweets, some of the stuff from the film, again from the film, the documentary, tweets, Instagram stories, all kinds of stuff. So it may be something that you might be interested in. So I wanted to make sure I included that for you. Again, the link will be down in the description below. Lastly with this, like I said, we did watch all 4 episodes, but allegedly, and this isn't people, so I'm assuming this is a legitimate source, because it was floating around as kind of a unconfirmed rumor, but it looks like here on April 7th they're going to have a 5th episode with more of Drake Bell, which his story was dark enough as it is. Maybe he'll go into more detail, maybe he'll name more names, maybe more people will pop up, but of course I'm sure we'll watch it, and I'll go back to that dark place again. But I do think that stuff is important to do. And so if there's anything of substance there that I think is worth adding on to this review, this recap here, I will do that. Again, this is I mean, it's an in-depth overview, but it's still just an overview. It's not a full breakdown of the documentary. I don't want to do that because one, it would take a while, and two, it would take away from the documentary itself. And the documentary is very well done. I think you should go out and watch it and support it. And hopefully, again, that encourages them to do more documentaries like this, to expose more of the dark side of the entertainment business, Hollywood. I mean, we see what's going on with P. Diddy. You know, there's everything that Cat Williams was talking about, the people he was throwing under the bus. So I do encourage you to go see it. I truly believe the more support they see for this kind of stuff, the more we'll get. And I am here for it.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.